Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 5 must-draft running backs for the 2023 fantasy football season post the 2023 NFL draft. But before we can go in depth into each of these running backs, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my 5 must-draft running backs of the 2023 fantasy football season. We begin at number 1. These running backs go in order of average draft position. The first running back we discuss will be going the highest in drafts, and then as we go deeper into the video, the later in drafts they'll be going. So at number 1, we have Breece Hall, running back of the New York Jumbo Jets, current underdog ADP running back number 9 at pick 27.8. Now, I know there are going to be some people worried about drafting Breece Hall because he did tear his ACL last season, but if I'm going to be honest with you guys now, important to note, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, so obviously I am not a doctor, but what we have seen in the NFL over the last couple of years is that modern medicine is so good. This is no longer back in the day where if you have a torn ACL, your career is probably going to be on a downward spiral after that. We have seen running backs dominate 50 Shades of Grey style after tearing their ACL, and Breece Hall, who was dominant last year, is now in a much superior version of that offense. Last year, Breece Hall was the RB 42.5 PPR in his rookie season, but he was the running back 7.5 PPR points per game, playing in 7 games, but he only had 2 starts. If you guys remember back to last season, they were kind of going with Michael Carter as the lead back early on, and then things obviously flipped to Breece Hall because of how great Breece Hall is. Obviously, we all knew that coming out of college. 80 carries for Breece Hall in the season, again in 7 games with 2 starts, 11.4 per game, number 52 at running back, 463 rushing yards, 66.1 per game, number 44, 32 targets, 4.6 per game, 40th, 19 receptions, 2.7 per game, 49th, 218 receiving yards, 31.1 per game, 27th, and 5 total touchdowns, 31st at running back. Again, these stats are not going to be mouth-watering. They're not going to be amazing because the guy only played in 7 games. But if you dive deeper, Michael Phelps style, into the interesting efficiency stats, you will realize just how great Breece Hall was in, again, a significantly worse version of this offense. The quarterbacks that the Jets were rolling out last season, it was laughably bad. We saw Joe Flacco, we saw Magic Mike White, and we saw the MILF Hunter, Zach Wilson. And obviously, things didn't go great, but now they have Aaron Rodgers. So again, last year, 5.3 true yards per carry, number 3 at running back, 6.9, very nice, I like, yards per touch, first at running back, 50.5% juke rate, number 1, and 11.3% breakaway run rate, second, in his rookie year. Now, I understand that some people might fade away from Breece Hall because maybe early on in the season, the production won't be amazing. And if that is the argument you want to make, that you think that Breece Hall might start a little bit slow, then I fully respect your opinion. Because I think, even while I think he is a must-draft running back, that the season might start off a little bit slow. That he might not come out the gate on fire. Sure, I agree with that sentiment, but I think 2-3 weeks in, Breece Hall might be a top 3 running back in fantasy football. I think he could be the running back number 1 in fantasy football, and he's coming off the board as the RB9. Moving to number 2, this is a guy that we've talked about a bunch on this channel already, and that is Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans. If you guys know, I am a big Dameon Pierce guy. We talked about him a bunch last season, and that is also going to be the case this year because the Houston Texans didn't really bring in much competition for Dameon Pierce. Underdog ADP running back number 20 at pick 62.3. He was the RB 27.5 PPR last season, tied with Tyler Algier, and the running back 23.5 PPR points per game. Playing in 13 games on the season, he had 220 carries, 16.9 per game, number 13, 939 rushing yards in his rookie year. Only playing in 13 games, he almost eclipsed 1,000 rushing yards, 72.2 per game, 16th. No, his targets, not the most, right? 39 targets, 3 per game, 30th, 30 receptions, 2.3 per game, 27th, 165 receiving yards, 12.7 per game, 42nd. I think his receiving numbers could go up. They brought in Devin Singletary, but it's not like Devin Singletary is fucking Alvin Kamara or Christian McCaffrey or something out there, a guy that catches a million passes, right? There's a reason why the Bills drafted James Cook last year, to catch those passes. So Dameon Pierce could be in for 50, 60 targets. Again, I'm not saying he's going to turn into Kamara or Christian McCaffrey or something like that, or even Saquon Barkley catching a bunch of passes, right? But could he get 50, 60 targets? I definitely think so. 5 total touchdowns, 31st at running back. I think the touchdown number is pretty easily, in my opinion, going to increase here. Now, predicting touchdown total is always very hard, so maybe he ends the season with 5 touchdowns again, but the Houston Texans offense is taking a humongous leap from last year to this year, going from Davis Money Mills, Lovie Smith, to this brand new offense with CJ Stroud, the young gun out of the Ohio State, right? Some interesting stats: 35.9 run block rating, 63rd running back. So the offensive line was atrocious. Laughably bad. The guy was still amazing. And again, I'm not saying that the offensive line in Houston is magically going to become a top 5 run blocking unit in the NFL, but they should be better, right? It's hard to be worse. 718 yards created, 55.2 per game, 15th. 68 evaded tackles, 5.2 per game, number 1. The guy's very shifty. I know he wasn't a first-round NFL draft pick, but he has the skill set, he has the ability, and with the teammates around him, like with the fact that they didn't bring in another running back and they bring in CJ Stroud, they've got some solid wide receivers. I know they don't have the most sexy names. I think the Texans are going to really surprise some people. I don't think they're going to win like 10, 12 games or something like that, but I think Dameon Pierce has the ability, the skill set to be very good for fantasy and finish inside the top 12. He's coming off the board as RB number 20, kind of similar to where his ADP was at the end of last season after everyone steamed him up towards the end of the summer. Even though I was on him since the NFL draft. At number 3, we move to Joe Mixon of the Cincinnati Bengals, underdog ADP running back 21 at pick 65.6. Now, early on in the offseason, I fully understood why people were fading Joe Mixon. It really didn't have anything to do with his play, but there was a lot of off-the-field shit that was going on, and there was a lot of talk about him potentially getting cut. Now, we're sitting here in May, and he's still on the team. So while I might have believed a couple of months ago that it was pretty plausible that, and I sound like I'm on the fucking Mythbusters or something saying plausible, but Joe Mixon getting cut seemed plausible back then. But now it's May. Seems like he's going to be on the team, right? And he's coming off the board as RB21, pick 65.6, and he was the RB12 last season in half PPR, and the RB8 in half PPR points per game. 14 games played in 2022. He had 212 carries, 14.1 per game, number 16. 826 rushing yards, 55.1 per game, number 25. 74 targets, 4.9 per game, number 5. He had 441 receiving yards, 29.4 per game, number 6. 9 total touchdowns, 14th at running back. Was it the most efficient running back? Definitely wasn't. 3.7 true yards per carry, 61st. But something I kind of talk about, there are guys like Derrick Henry who are not necessarily getting the most yards per carry, the most true yards per carry, but they see so much volume every game that even if they aren't the most effective back on earth, they can still flourish. And that's the case with Mixon. 4.7 yards per touch, 35th. 74.6 run block rating, 14th. I know they bring in Chase Brown, but Samaje Perine is now a Denver Bronco, right? If they were going to replace Joe Mixon, if they were going to give him the fucking axe, then they would have brought in someone else. At least you would think, right? Maybe Kareem Hunt shows up or Ezekiel Elliott, and maybe I look like a bozo and Joe Mixon's gone. Bye-bye, pal. Maybe that's what happens. But looking at how things are sitting right now in May, Joe Mixon is an absolute steal at pick 65.6. If you're doing underdog drafts, make sure you check out the link in the video description. If you're brand new to underdog, you click on the link in the video description. You will get a $100 first match deposit bonus. So you deposit $100, they'll give you an additional $100. You deposit $50, they'll give you an additional $50, all up to $100, 100% first match deposit bonus. If you don't know what underdog is, it is a best ball drafting website. They also have picks you can do on there, pick'ems, but I do a bunch of drafts on there, 18 rounds, the biggest contest, Best Ball Mania, for $15 million total prizes, $25 to enter. If you don't want to throw out $25 on drafts in May, I understand. I've been doing a bunch of puppy drafts, only $5, a pretty decent prize as well to first place on there. So check that out, link in the video description if you are new. So back on into Joe Mixon again. I know he wasn't amazing last year. I've been a Joe Mixon guy for a while. I know there was reason, again, to believe that Joe Mixon might get cut. But again, it's May. They didn't really bring in any competition. And if Joe Mixon is the guy at RB21, you should be laughing straight to the fucking bank. RB21 for a guy that is as good as Joe Mixon? Come on now. We all can acknowledge that he is severely underpriced right now, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about these guys. Breece Hall, Dameon Pierce, Joe Mixon. You got the same opinion as me, you like these guys? Or, hey, maybe, Nick, you're wrong. You think differently? That's fine, too. I love talking to you guys in the comments. At number 4, we got James Conner, ADP on Underdog, running back 26, pick 82.4 of the Arizona Cardinals. Running back 20.5 PPR last year, playing in 13 games, RB 10.5 PPR points per game. He had 183 carries, 14.1 per game, number 28, 782 rushing yards, 60.2 per game, number 30, 58 targets, 4.5 per game, number 12, 46 receptions, 3.5 per game, number 13, 300 receiving yards, 23.1 per game, number 17, and 8 total tugs, 16th at running back. Now, I know James Conner in Arizona hasn't necessarily been the same James Conner that we saw early on in his career in Pittsburgh when he took over for Le'Veon Bell, when Lev Bell was too busy jet skiing around in the Florida fucking Gulf. This man was balling for the Pittsburgh Steelers. James Conner wasn't amazing last year. He was getting drafted pretty highly. I was a big fan of James Conner. Now, he wasn't like a first or second round pick, but he was a guy that I liked a lot. Obviously, Kyler goes down. The team kind of goes down with him. Cliff Kingsbury, certified bozo head coach. He is now gone. Bye-bye, pal. The Arizona Cardinals bring in a new head coach. Now, my only worry about James Conner, and I think this is baked into his price, right? I think if Kyler Murray was healthy, James Conner would be higher, maybe closer to Mixon, like RB22, right? Because the fact that Kyler might miss 5-6 games, in my opinion, Kyler might even miss the whole season, because when you think about things logically, now obviously if Kyler's injury, people are saying, okay, he missed the first couple of games, right? Realistically, based upon the injury that he sustained last season, that makes perfect sense when you do the math, based upon the history of an injury that Kyler Murray has. But when you think about things, and you think about the Arizona Cardinals, you think, what happens if the Arizona Cardinals are 0-5 and Kyler's looking to come back? Do you pull the trigger on your franchise quarterback coming back at 0-5 off of an injury like that? Do you pull the trigger on that? If you're 0-5. Now again, if they're 3-2, obviously Kyler's coming back. But when you look at the Cardinals roster, do you think that that is very likely to happen? I don't think so. I think it's more likely that they're fucking 0-5 than 3-2 by week 5, say, if Kyler comes back week 6. So my biggest worry is not that Kyler's going to miss the first couple of games, is that Kyler might be gone all season. And if Kyler misses the whole season, we're to be getting the Colt McCoy experience, or the Jeff Driscoll experience, or David Blau, or Clayton Tune, right? So that's my biggest worry. But then again, we saw last year teams like the Atlanta Falcons getting destroyed, getting their asshole ripped apart, getting torn a new one. And still, late in the game, run the ball gently down the stream, run the rock with aggression. So could that happen for the Cardinals? I think so. And again, James Conner's another one of these running backs where there isn't much competition, right? They have Keontae Ingram. They have Corey Clement. But unless there's an injury to James Conner, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, do I really see Keontae Ingram taking over? No. So I think James Conner has a pretty safe role. He's coming off the board as RB26. Efficiency stats, again, James Conner's another one of those guys, not the most effective in terms of yards per carry, but he just gets enough volume to where it shouldn't really matter. 4.2 true yards per carry, 33rd. Now, if he was getting like 3.5 true yards per carry, then obviously you got to panic. Duh, but he's got 4.2. 64 evaded tackles, 4.9 per game, 13th. 709 yards created, 54.5 per game, 17th. And 28.8% dominator rating. So the team's amount of yards and touchdowns going heavily to James Conner. I know Hopkins is coming back, but James Conner is a really big part in this offense, especially if Kyler's hurt. They're going to want to run the ball even more. Obviously, I think there's a lot more scoring chances for James Conner if Kyler is in. But with Colt McCoy, they don't want McCoy slinging the rock a zillion times a game. if he doesn't have to. So final running back to discuss here. Now, this is a little bit of maybe a hotter take to many. I think a lot of people can agree if Breece Hall is healthy for week 1 or even healthy early on in the season, he's a really good pick. Dameon Pierce on the Texans. They bring in Devon Singletary. They got CJ Stroud. This is a great situation. Joe Mixon, undervalued completely based upon if he's the Cincinnati Bengals running back, which I think he will be. And then James Conner, even though Kyler's hurt, the Cardinals are a disaster. At running back 26, that's a good value. Now we move to number 5, and that is Devon off the chain. Devon 2 chains. Devon Achane, running back of the Miami Dolphins, underdog ADP, running back 35, pick 111.4. I honestly think in a lot of normal redraft leagues that you're drafting in with your friends, late August, early September, I don't think he's going to go that high, if I'm being honest with you, because I think a lot of people don't really, he's not like he was this crazy high NFL draft pick. So I don't think people are, the more casual crowds necessarily running to go draft this guy. Played for 3 years at Texas A&M. He had 10 games played in 2022, 21 years old. 196 rushes for 1,102 rushing yards, 36 receptions for 196 receiving yards, and 11 total touchdowns. He ran a 99th percentile for the running back position, 40-yard dash with a 4.32. 88th percentile speed score on Player Profiler with 108. This Dolphins offense runs on speed. America runs on Duncan. Devon Achane was, according to Marcel Louis Jaquez, I believe I pronounced his name right. If I didn't, I apologize to him. He covers the Dolphins for ESPN. Obviously, I'm a Dolphins fan, so I read his stuff. Stated that the Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel lobbied heavily to pick him, stating that his speed will be utilized in a myriad of ways. I think Mostert and Wilson could start ahead of Achane early on, especially Mostert. I think the Dolphins view Mostert as their RB1. But I think that the skill set of Achane, the pass catching ability of Achane potentially going out wide to catch passes, he could fully take over as the lead back on the Fins. Again, the Dolphins offense runs on speed. Mostert's incredibly fast. Achane's fast as fuck. Tyreek Hill, obviously very fast. Jalen Waddle, obviously very fast. Braxton Berrios, sneaky fast, really gritty. So, thinking we're going to see a lot of Achane. Now, I was someone who swung and missed on Chase Edmonds last year. But Devon Achane is way better than Chase Edmonds. So, thinking I like this for the Dolphins. Now, again, people always used to say, Nick, you only like these guys because they're on the Dolphins. When the Dolphins were terrible, when I started making YouTube videos when I was a sophomore in college, I would talk about how I didn't like the Dolphins for fantasy football. Every Sunday, I still cheer for them. Still hope they fucking win. I still hope all the players that I said sucked were amazing. But last year, when the Dolphins, I thought they'd be good under Mike McDaniel, I talked them up. Just like I'm going to do this year. I love the Dolphins. And if that defense is as legit as I think they could be, they're going to be running a lot late in games. And Devon Achane could be feasting like Zeke at Thanksgiving dinner. So I love you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about the video. Like button, subscribe button down below. I'll see you guys soon with another video. I love you guys all so much. We're trying to post every single day, Monday through Friday. In August, might be 7 days a week. Might be multiple videos every day. Who knows? But I do love you guys deep down. Hope you guys have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.